My speech is entitled The Power of Being Silly, Why Being Silly is Important. If you know me, you know that I'm a silly person and I embrace it. I embrace that silliness. So I will spend the next 3 hours once we're done rehearsing the speech, going over it, trying to lock everything in the brain. And I need to, and this it's called The Power of Being Silly. So I need to be able to.
I'm going to take your word for that. I don't recall.
Because your weeks have been in a haze.
Man, it's been such a haze that I don't even remember what I talked about last week and what I didn't with respect to this judicial process. So if you're driving, don't do what I'm about to tell you to do. If you're just sitting on your couch or at your desk at work or whatever you're doing, and you've been on a cruise before, just close your eyes and imagine for a moment what's in your hand right now.
For most people, it's probably not their penis, but my answer would be
right.
What kind of weirdo digital nomads from cruise ships? Well, when I'm not being hypnotized by Judge Mentalist or serenaded with custom parodies by Big Sexy, I'm thinking about, talking about, and writing about cruising. Check out ship tours, cruise tips, and even join us on a group cruise by visiting cruisehabit.com/BSDN. Come talk ship with us. Again, that's cruisehabit.com/BSDN. Thanks for listening. Safe travels.
What up, sexy world travelers? It's your boy, Big Sexy, here with a big thank you to our big, sexy world travelers. They're the folks who went over to bullwiththebutthole.com and subscribe to the podcast. I want to say a big shout out to Billy with cruisehabit.com, Lee Popsicle, Margaret White, Angel Quo, Bree, Chris Lowry, Galen Diggs, Jesus, Joshua Tarr, Michael McKenna, Sebastian Robbins, and Smitty Scoop. If you would like to have your name read out before the show, just become a big, sexy world traveler and subscribe to the podcast. Swing on over to bullwiththebutthole.com and join the fun. Safe travels.
What is up, you big sexy world travelers? It's Judge Mentalist here. A lot of moving parts here in the podcast now that we got all these videos and thank yous to stuff being automated and me trying to figure out, wait, are we live? Are we not live? What do I click? Is it my turn? Is it Big Sexy's turn? Man, it's like my life the past 10 days. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other fun stuff and whatever the hell is going on. I am lost, so let's be found with Big Sexy, your host.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever this is hitting your ear holes. I hope that it is good. Things are going really good here. I'm excited. I have a speech contest tonight. As of this recording, tonight I will be entering into a speech contest with Toastmasters. My speech is entitled The Power of Being Silly. And I will move this into the improv workshops that I do, that I have a whole series of the power of being a silly ... Right? So the power of being a silly parent, the power of being a silly teacher. And this will be the core understanding, the core basis of the power of being silly. Why being silly is important. If you know me, you know that I'm a silly person and I embrace it. I embrace that silliness. So I'm giving a speech on that tonight. Hopefully I'll win the contest. It starts in the area. First, it's an area contest. And if I win, then I go to the district. And then if I win that, I go international.
Okay, so I'm familiar with this organization, Toastmasters, right?
Yes.
And we've talked a little bit about the concept of it and the purpose and everything like that here on the podcast in the past. But you're in Mexico.
Yes.
what is the makeup of folks that are in this room as far as native language and accent and things like that? And what language are people speaking most of the time in this group? Because I live, like many of us do, in this like self-centered world. And so when things, and I think this is the case for almost everybody, that when information is given to you, you translate it in a story that reflects what you see in your world. And I'm realizing that you're telling me all these stories about going and doing these speeches and, you know, introductions and questions and all this other stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, my guy's in a foreign country where he's not speaking the local native language, but it's also a vacation destination and everything like that. So what's it look like in the room?
So the inspiring speakers of Playa del Carmen Toastmasters room is the first English-speaking Toastmasters group in this part of Mexico.
Okay.
And I think it's one of 3 in all of Mexico, if my numbers are correct. The other 2 groups in this area are Spanish-speaking specifically.
Okay.
And since Toastmasters is an international organization, it seems that around the world there are native language-speaking Toastmaster organizations as well as English-speaking Toastmasters organizations in those foreign countries.
Gotcha.
So everyone in this group speaks English. Otherwise, I couldn't do anything in this group because your boy isn't doing speeches in Spanish yet.
Of course.
Right.
Not yet, at least.
I could do a speech in Spanish soon. I'd have to get it, write it out. Well, not write it out. Write it out in English, have Google translate it into Spanish, and then learn the Spanish by mote. Right. So by rote, not by mote.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hop in a liquid river around a castle and learn it. I am going to learn it by rote, just by the sound of it, and learn it, phonetically, as opposed to what I'm actually saying. Have to rely on what I typed out in English to get my point across. But no, this is an English speaker. There are a lot of expats in this group. So there's some Irish folks, some Scottish people, a lot of native, Mexicans and Spanish speakers. The president of the club is Romanian or part Romanian. So there's a lot of different native tongues as you were in this group, but everybody does English, which means that the hardest role in this organization is the grammarian, because you're having to do grammar evaluation for non-native English speakers.
Right.
Yeah. So that's been interesting, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. And, tonight's the contest. I was tempted to message you, be like, hey, can we postpone this until later? Because I want to rehearse the speech. But I can set aside about an hour to talk about whatever's going on and then get back to rehearsing. The speech is, I got to be at the place in 4 hours. So I will spend the next 3 hours once we're done rehearsing the speech, going over it, trying to lock everything in the brain so that I don't have to use my note cards, because they limit me with my note cards. When I have the note cards, I'm stuck in this little small.
Yeah.
And I need to, and it's called the power of being silly. So I need to be able to with
next question.
Yes.
Because while I'm familiar with the concept, I've never attended. I've never even formally been invited. I don't even know if there's a group around here near me. I've seen, social media ads or whatever.
I'm sure there is. I'm 100% there's a group near you.
So compare this for me, kind of like toss it up on a scale of what you're doing tonight and where that lines up with, let's say, a TED Talk. Because when you tell me your topic, I could see that being the topic of a TED Talk.
My dream is to make that eventually become a topic of a TED Talk. I do plan to flesh this out and really build this up. Right now it has to be between 5 and 7 minutes, but I want to be able to build this up so I can do like a full 15, 20, 30-minute TED Talk around the concept of the power of being silly. But this speech, Toastmasters is a very formatted event. It's a very, they try to follow, is it the Robert's Rules of meeting structure?
Robert's Rules of Order?
Of order, yeah. They try to follow that. It's very organized by time. There's a gavel, there's a timer, there's the agenda, and the agenda is mapped out minute by minute. That's why the speeches have time limits. The evaluations have time limits. There's a grammarian, as I mentioned before. There's an counter, as we've discussed here on the podcast, somebody who's counting all the ahs and ums and so's and likes and repetitive words. There is, the evaluator for every speech is assigned an evaluator. This one, this speech won't have an evaluator because it's for a contest, so it'll be judged. They'll have 3 evaluators judging the speech. And then it's like an organization. So there's the president, secretary, things of that nature, all throughout the organization and the meeting or whatever. So this is the most official thing I'm doing in Playa del Carmen, right? This has the least amount of flexibility in terms of leeway, but this is the most organized event I'm currently doing. I'm a part of a lot of networking groups and conscious co-working, and they're kind of nebulous and feeling their way around and figuring stuff out. It's funny. I'm new here, and I'm also seem to be a part of a lot of things that are also new, even though people have been here for years and kind of figuring this kind of stuff out for years. The groups that I find myself involved in, even the Toastmasters, is only a year old. Right? They just had their year celebration maybe like last month or something like that. The conscious co-working is relatively new. I'm involved in another networking group called the Playa Changemakers. They just had their 5th meeting, right? The improv that I am running now was only two workshops deep. And when I got in, I went to the 3rd.
Right.
And then by the 4th, it was given to me. And so the 5th one was mine. And now I'm planning for the 6th one this coming weekend. And yeah, I think the Wine Wednesdays was established before I got a part, but even the open mic was brand new, even though they had other open mics before the music stuff. That open mic is brand new. So I'm at the starting point of a lot of things here. But by far Toastmasters is the most official and the most world known.
Yeah.
World renowned. It is an international organization. It is bigger than Playa, where everything else is just Playa.
Sweet. Well, you were doing, didn't you have like a Wine Wednesday group or something in Spain as well?
Yeah, the concept is not just Playa,
yeah.
But the group itself is strictly Playa. Yeah, they're doing Wine Wednesdays. In Spain, it was a Wine Whispers.
Oh, okay.
That I tried to help facilitate. So when anyone on break, I try to quote unquote take it over and keep it going. Except for I wasn't living in Malaga Center, and I didn't have those contacts yet. So it kind of grew from that idea, but it never took off. That was one of the hard things about living in Spain, is that I would start something and then I'd have to leave. And it would die when I was gone. Then I come back and have to start it all over again. And that's hard to do. But, what I was able to do in Spain I said this before, I'm pretty sure. What took 3 visits, 3 months at a time to Spain for me to teach my first improv class. I was able to do that on my, within a month and a half here.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I'm excited. Like, I'm very thrilled to be doing this. Once I heard about there's a contest, the competitor in me was like, ooh, who else is going to enter this? Who else? Who am I beating? Who's going to lose to me? Because I don't think you're ready for this jelly. Yeah. And my wife, I love her. She gave me the greatest advice this morning, and I did the speech for her. And she was, she's very supportive and an amazing speaker. She told me, she goes, look, when you do the serious parts of your speech, you get very monotone and you have the same kind of intention and you want to deliver the information and you're always staying right in this pocket. She's like, change that up, be varied in your speech, have some vocal variety in that. Not only that, but you're doing a speech called The Power of Being Silly. And I only saw little brief glimpses of silliness. This whole thing needs to reek of silly abandon and ludicrous folly. And I 100% you're right. You're absolutely right. I was getting caught up in the speech of it all instead of the subject matter and really tapping and leaning into my strong point. I'm a silly motherfucker. And I need to lean into the silly.
Fun times.
It's going to be exciting. I'll keep you posted. Of course, I'm going to have it recorded. So the video of the speech will go up on our Patreon.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So if you subscribe over at bullwiththebutthole.com, you as a paid member, you'll have access to that video. The video of my other speech is already up on the site as well. Unlike the origin of my name speech, I will not be putting the audio of this speech up on Spotify as a bonus episode. This one strictly will be for the Patreon. If you want to hear or see this speech, strictly on the Patreon. At bullwiththebutthole.com.
Sweet. Well, I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. And you said, now you've had a very busy 10 days. My last few days have also been busy. A lot of interviews, a lot of stuff coming. But what's been occupying your brain space since? Well, I mean, it wasn't 10 days since we recorded. It was only like 4. I think we recorded on Monday.
Did we?
I think so. I think we recorded 113 on Monday and dropped it on Wednesday, and today's Thursday.
I'm going to take your word for that. I don't recall.
because your weeks have been in a haze.
Man, it's been such a haze that I don't even remember what I talked about last week and what I didn't with respect to this judicial process and the interviewing and nominating process.
I don't know how much of the process you got into, but you did mention that you were going through the process.
Right. So the application was due on November 12th. And I have since learned, and I might have mentioned this because I learned this upon hand delivering the application, that it's like a 2-phase process, and the regional nominating commission, which is made up of attorneys and possibly some judges, because I don't recognize all of the names, from my county and 2 others that are adjacent to us. Some of the bigger counties population wise just have a committee within their own county. We don't. It's a region of 3 counties, and I knew when I dropped this off that phase was basically culminating on December 9th with an interview. Each of the candidates will be interviewed by that committee, and then they, for each of the seats that are open, select the 3 top qualified candidates to pass those names to the governor, and then a new phase starts. When I first was made aware of the openings, I thought this was going to be a much longer process, several months.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I have now learned that I may know whether I'm getting appointed to this seat or not in 2024. I wouldn't take the seat if I were appointed until sometime in 2025. They're going to give whoever it is time to settle up any of their legal business. So if they are working for somebody else and it's just as much as giving notice, then they've got time to do that, whatever's reasonable. If it's somebody like me with a private practice that I solely own, figuring out what that transition process is going to be, whether I'm selling it to an outsider, whether I'm, my wife is taking over, whatever the case is. But the decision is likely going to be made either the end of this year or or within the first week of next year, because our state has a legislative session that runs for 90 days. This year it begins on January 8th, and I have been given the indication that the governor wishes to select these seats prior to the start of that legislative session. So things are moving a little quicker than I thought they were going to. As folks on the podcast likely know, in the week after Thanksgiving, I am going on a cruise. And part of this process, in Maryland, there are 16 different specialty bar associations. Some of them represent certain groups. Some of them represent certain legal interests. They're varied and they're all over the place. Some of them represent areas of the state. One of them is like based in Baltimore City and is about supporting attorneys and whatnot in that area. Each of them get forwarded the application from all of the candidates, and then they have an opportunity to set up interviews. And these aren't like, hey, we want to interview you, when's good for you? It's, hey, we're doing interviews. These are the dates. Some of them are simply, your date and time is this. We'll send you. Some of them are, here are the times that we have available. And then I respond, hey, that one's good or whatever. And then I kind of feel a little bit for some of the other folks in this process, because the vast majority of them are working full-time government jobs. They're either working for the state's attorney, which are the prosecutors here in the county or another county, or they're working for the public defender's office, which is the court-appointed defenders. They're working full-time Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type of jobs where they don't necessarily have access to their phones and their emails for the vast majority of the day. So me working for me, sometimes my boss is an asshole, but that's my fault. And I literally be like, I'll take that first time. And I know that I am responding to these emails, or sometimes it's like to click in and get access to, like I had one yesterday or the day before where I clicked in and it was like a list of the openings or whatever, and they were all open. And then I picked mine and then it put my name in. And I went to a different browser and clicked to see, it publicly showed my name. So I knew unequivocally that I was the first person to pick one of these slots.
Because you didn't see any other names before.
There were no other names before me. And then I went, again, in another browser and saw my name. So I knew that you could see the names publicly. So, I'm getting all the slots that I want so far, other than the ones that are like, here's your time, here's your date. I'm going on this cruise. I've got 3 interviews scheduled during this cruise. And, freaking out a little bit because I'm like, am I even going to be able to do this? Like, I feel like I need to get some answers because I'm on the Carnival offer that I have apparently is one of their better offers. It's called an Echo Cruise. So
Okay.
they basically roll out the red carpet for you. And I've mentioned this before, kind of in passing, that I feel like I'm getting paid to go on this cruise. And then when I
Right.
have learned new things, I've realized that I actually am getting paid to go on this cruise.
Right.
One of the things that's included in my package is I'm just pausing for you to make an inappropriate joke, which isn't going to happen. That's cool.
You mean based around your cruise package?
About my package, yeah. One of the parts of the offer for this booking package is the social level Wi-Fi, and of course I'm investigating, and I've talked to people like Chris and Lisa, who are the cruise planners. If you want to do that Elk to Magic cruise, it's gowithlisa.com/whatever group/Elk to Magic maybe. I'm
Also,
sure we'll plug it
subscribers
later.
to the podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah. That they told me, because I was, they were one of the first people that I was like, what the fuck, am I going to be okay? How's the Wi-Fi? And then I reached out to Matt because I knew that Matt was on a Princess ship, which is the same, is their parent company's Carnival. And I know that he had been doing some episodes. I'm like, how's the Wi-Fi? It's been fine, blah, 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 blah. Obviously it's ship to ship. Chris and Lisa were just on the same ship, the Pride, back in September when they went to Iceland. So they assured me, because they're in a networking group with me as well. They're like, those times that we zoomed into the meeting, because it was like a 2-week cruise, we were on that ship's Wi-Fi. You should be good to go. So what I need to figure out, because
you also talk to our friend over at
cruisehabit.com, bitches.
I had that queued up to click. You beat me to it. So yeah, I'm going to ask them about, because they may be more familiar with this next question that I have. Included in my package is what's called the social Wi-Fi. They've got 3 or 4 different tiers of Wi-Fi. One that just gets you like texting or iMessage or Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp type of stuff. Then there's a next tier up that lets you do like web browsing and stuff. The one that I need is the premium, because that gives you Zoom and Skype calls and things like that. So I'm trying to figure out, what is the process? Can I upgrade and just pay the difference between what they're already giving me and what I need? And I kind of, it's a little bit of an important thing to figure out. So
you want to get that figured out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So that you can have that kind of peace of mind that you're looking for.
That it's all I'm really looking for, is the peace of mind of knowing that I am going, because I don't care if I have to pay and there's no like prorated difference and I just have to pay for it. Well, I don't want to do that now. I want to ice it and get it taken care of, because here's the thing. We're recording this on Thursday, November 21st.
Yes.
And shortly after we do this podcast, I've got an interview on Zoom with one of the other bar associations. Tomorrow's Friday. Then next week is 3 weekdays until Thanksgiving.
Right.
And then I'm on the cruise. I have done, counting the one that I'll do tonight, I will have done 3 interviews so far. And I have 3 of them booked while I'm on the cruise already. That's 6.
6 interviews.
That list is 16 different bar associations, which means 10 of them have not reached out. I don't know that all 10 of them.
I would say you have to interview every single bar association.
Well, you don't have to, but and they don't, and then they may not necessarily reach out about interviewing. But what they are going to do when they interview, they're interviewing everybody, or at least offering to interview everybody. And
they have to, right?
They have to at least offer it. People can decline if they're like, oh, this bar association that's focused on not here geographically, and their focus is, this county or Baltimore City or whatever, then maybe I don't. I see it as an opportunity for them to ask me questions that are important to them that might not be on my radar. I want those, especially those bar associations that have nothing to do with here. I want your questions. I want to know what other people that are outside of my circle are looking for, so that I could, if I get this seat, that I could be a better judge, because why wouldn't I fucking do it as best as I possibly can?
Exactly.
So, up to 10 more of these might contact me. And given the fact that the last step, because what happens is all of these bar associations will decide who they think is that they want to endorse. And I think it can be more than one person, who they find to be highly qualified or what have you. And then they'll forward that to the nominating committee. My guess is they have to have that stuff to the nominating committee prior to December 6th. December 6th was given to me as a date that if I have anybody that wants to write me a letter of recommendation and send to the nominating committee, that it must be there by December 6th.
Gotcha.
That means that all 10 of these additional ones, if they're going to reach out and schedule an interview, are probably going to be during the week of that cruise.
Right.
I may be doing up to 13 interviews. And now these interviews are like 15, 20 minutes long, but
on a cruise back. So you might be spending a lot of time in your cabin.
Right. Unless you're driving, because I know a lot of people listen to the podcast while driving. So if you're driving, don't do what I'm about to tell you to do. But if you're just sitting on your couch or at your desk at work or whatever you're doing, and you've been on a cruise before, just close your eyes and imagine for a moment who you are and what you're doing when you're on a cruise most of the time. And I'm specifically referencing what's in your hand right now. Because I'll tell you right now,
for most people, it's probably not their penis, but my answer would be different.
Right. But
yeah, you might have a beverage.
I might not. Like, and the best part is like this package is I've got drinks everywhere on the ship. Like
I might have my package in my hand.
Yeah. This package, and don't get me wrong, like I have fun wherever the hell I go. So it's not like this is going to ruin this cruise for me. I'm just going to have to be diplomatic about it and make sure that I am intimately aware of the schedule. I have already gone to realize that, okay, the Bahamas, which is the main core of the destination, is in the same time zone. So I don't have to worry about fucking with ship's time versus home's time. And when these people are, I'm good. I'm good on those kind of fronts. Like, and I'm not like my wife is OCD level planner, like color-coded tabs, all this other shit. I'm like,
right,
I'll remember when it is. I don't even necessarily always put everything on every calendar every time. I just go and do. And this is probably the, like, I'm like, ooh, I've got to really, drill down on this. And I've got some that are at like 8 a.m. I've got some that are, 5 and 6 o'clock in the evening and everywhere in between. Fortunately, none of them overlap with each other, but it's not like I can contact these folks, because I initially tried and then realized that I shouldn't even bother to try to reschedule these, because they're getting members of the nominating committee within their organization together, and they want the same panel of people interviewing all of the candidates, presumably asking all of the same questions throughout the process.
Right. So they're setting up an entire day.
Correct.
And they're filling that day with the different candidates possible.
Yeah. So kudos to them, because they're between the two different seats that are open. I want to say that there's like 14. I don't know exactly, but there's like 14 different people. And some of these bar associations are only interested in one of the seats versus the other or whatnot. But and some of them are, want to have weigh in on both. But boy, oh boy, is it a lot of work. And yeah. So
now I've seen in Vegas when they were doing the judge for the election, whatever, is each judge eventually had their own election focused website with it's like their landing page of who they are, what they represent, their whatever. Are you going to create one of those?
So it depends, because there are two different seats with two different levels of trial court here. We have two trial courts in Maryland. There's 4 different levels of court that are state courts in the state of Maryland. 2 of them are trial courts, 2 of them are appellate courts. And if the judge, the judge trial, bench trials level court, the district court for anybody local and knows what I'm talking about, is strictly an appointment. You are appointed, you've got the gig for 15 years, and then the next at the end of 15 years on that general election ballot, your name will show up, and it's just, should you keep this judge? Yes, no. And I don't think anybody ever gets ousted from those, because
no one cares.
For the sports nerds out there, a judge is probably, sports analogy should be as similar to like an offensive lineman in football. If you're hearing their name a whole lot, it's probably a bad thing. Otherwise, they should blend into the background and not be making a scene, so to speak. So, unless somebody were just like a complete shitbag, they're not going to get ousted. The upper court,
for my nerds and entertainment folk, the judge would be considered your day player. Not your day player. Your paid, what is it called? Your general extra. You're the same guy in the same area, background. Yeah, but more than just the background actor. He's the guy you see in the show. You don't know who he is. You don't recognize him, but you see him in every single show. Where to the point where if you saw them on the street, you'd be like, where do I know that guy from? That guy looks familiar. And it'll never come to you because you're never thinking of that particular show. Oh, that's the judge from that one show, that one court drama that I watch.
Right.
If you're watching Law and Order, you can't tell me who the judge was.
Exactly. You shouldn't be able to. Right.
Right. That's that analogy there.
So yeah, it's a hell of a process. And so the upper court, your name goes on the ballot in the next general election, which will be 2026.
Okay.
And individuals who wish to can file to also have their name on the ballot and run against you. Now, they have to be an attorney. They have to be 30 years old. They have to, live in the state for 5 years, live in the county for the past 6 months or something along those lines. So anybody could do it. It's hit and miss. Like, we just had a name for a recently appointed judge a year or two ago, and nobody ran against him. So a lot of times people don't run against him because you got to run a political campaign, and most people, they want to do what they're doing. You know what I mean? They're not particularly interested in mounting up a campaign. Now, in some of the bigger counties, it happens, but typically what happens is all of these organizations that endorse you, if they endorse you through the process, will be part of backing you and promoting you and making sure that the person that they endorsed, or the people and they endorse, because in some of the bigger counties, they have like 4 and 5 judges that get appointed at the same time, and there's a bigger slate that they fundraise together and put out signage together that's retain these judges or whatever. So there is a process. If that happened and I were there and there was an opponent, I would probably set up an informational website, but it would just be, like you mentioned, a landing page, not really a whole lot more than that.
Right. That makes sense.
And I would get to put on there most qualified and whatever, because it's an arduous process to go through. And I have in the past, when there was an election and people running against the seated judge, I have on more than one occasion been outwardly spoken about, how arduous the process is. I understood it as an outsider, what the ramifications of it are, and that you need to just trust that process. Like, I would never have voted for anybody that was just running for judge the way that it's set up here. Now, in some states, their judges are elected straight up. There is no appointment process, which to me seems a little wild, but I'm not telling these states how to run their operations.
Yeah. Who do you think you are? The federal government? Right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see where this goes for you. I'm really looking forward to the pathways and the processes and the madness. I can't wait for you to be on a cruise and you come back like, I had fucking 8 fucking interviews. on this
Yeah.
cruise. Not a full 13, but not just the 3 either. And, but luckily they fell into place and they were good. And I happen to be in a happy place. So I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
the
I mean,
interviews went well.
I've had 2 of them so far. They've been good. The one that I'm doing this evening is actually with this is the one that I'm really interested in. I'm interested in this one more than any of the others because this is basically the specialty interest bar association that is comprised of insurance defense attorneys. So the opposite of what I do every day. Like
Right.
I am in an organization of plaintiff injury attorneys, and this is the the yin and the yang of the organizations.
Right.
So I'm interested to see. I am excited to see how these folks want to grill me more than any of the other candidates, because almost everybody else that is in line for one of these appointments is either a public defender or a state's attorney or doing things that are not what I'm doing,
Right.
where the premise of questions to ask those people is going to be more along the lines of how the hell are you getting up to speed on all the moving parts that go into what we do.
Right. Right.
For me, they probably want to make sure that, hey, are you going to be, you're what we consider ostensibly to be the bad guy here. So, and I, them, and don't get me wrong. All of the relationships that I have with defense attorneys, super cordial. Some of them are good friends. So there's no real animosity there. We're just doing the job. I'm doing my job. They're doing theirs.
Football players are friends with football players on opposite
100%.
teams.
So, there's obviously they're trying to educate their kinfolk as our group is trying to educate our kinfolk on strategies to better advocate for our clients, and they the same. But there's not the same kind of like tribalism that there is, in the American political landscape.
Right.
So,
it's
but of course they're going to want to know,
smaller.
hey, you come from that side of the tracks. Are you going to be able to be fair and impartial? And
Right.
maybe they don't even ask me that kind of stuff other than at the generic level, because there's this lore that when attorneys, because many of our attorneys here and a lot of attorneys, because here's the reality of it is a lot of attorneys that do these positions and that end up in these positions came from either a public defender or a state's attorney job, because those jobs don't pay a lot and comparatively the judicial seats do. For me, it's a pay cut. To me, being appointed one of these seats and taking one of these seats is service. It's just an extension of the service life that I've lived.
I was going to ask if there was a financial benefit or detriment to the position.
Yeah, I mean, there are other benefits to it that are difficult to calculate, and I'll be, if I'm there, I'll be on their insurance benefits, which I'm assuming are better than what I'm paying for right now. Obviously, my whole family will be able to be on it. And really, there's going to be, I've got a lot of moving parts to what I do. And I'm just talking about within the law practice, not the stuff that I do outside of the law practice. So, some of the trade-off is, hey, there's going to be a degree of simplicity here compared to what you've been doing. It's not simple. It's not a simple job, but compared to what I'm doing now, I'm not going to be running payroll. I'm not going to be paying invoices. I'm not going to be cutting checks for, I'm not reconciling and balancing a trust account. Like there's just a litany of things that are part of running a law office that are not part of practicing law that poof go away. I mean, they don't go away. I've got to transition them to somebody.
Well, yeah. So I mean, those things will still exist. Somebody else will be doing them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll relinquish all ownership. I have to stop practicing law if I'm appointed one of these seats.
Of course.
So,
of course.
It was, there were a lot of hard conversations before we decided that it made sense for me to apply. So, it's been an interesting journey so far. The rest of it's going to continue to be interesting. And, like I said, I'm looking forward very much to this evening's interview among all the rest. But especially this evening's because of, what it means to what I do every day. And, but again, there's a lot of, I have a lot of cordial relationships with folks that are on the other side of these cases. There's nobody that I have any sort of ill will to, and I'd like to believe that anybody that's been on the other side of one of these cases feels the same about me. We're just trying to muddle through the process and get things to the finish line in a way that best suits our clients mutually.
Right. And so it's going to be really fun and really interesting. So I'm looking forward to those kind of updates. We need to pivot. I'm looking at the time, and holy shit, time is moving fast this episode, which is nice, which is good. I think that's probably both got a lot on our mind. I want to give a shout out to Amy Bertleson from Las Vegas, who did not send us an email, but did post on one of our posts on Facebook when I dropped the trailer for 113. She commented, and I wanted to read the comment because it was interesting. One, it reminded me that people are listening to us, right?
Of course.
Two, not everybody is listening to us where we're at. Some people are now playing catch up and going back. And three, that we don't remember what the fuck we talked about.
Also true. I do believe that I started the last chain of this conversation that I didn't remember exactly what I talked about days ago.
Last episode, right. So Amy writes, listening to episode 26.
Ooh, we back in the cut.
Yeah, about how nice to be to get as many free drinks as possible. Do you remember discussing that? You're talking about flights and you flying first class and how you can get a bunch of free drinks by being nice to the stewards.
Oh, that wasn't even about first class. That was on a Southwest flight. I think I was talking about that.
Right.
And just schmoozing.
So they wrote, pro tip, direct from flight attendant, give them goodies as you walk on board. Anything coffee related, Starbucks gift cards, etc. Snacks like chocolate bars, whatever else. Specialty eats from the location you're flying out of. So I never thought of like gifting something to the flight attendant staff and then them taking just lovely care of you on a flight.
Yeah.
I can imagine if you fly a lot, especially like you fly Southwest a lot and you are on and you kind of get recognized a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you start to recognize other flight attendants. I bet that goes a long way.
So I was watching recently a reel or a TikTok or, one of those somewhere. And it was a reel that was dedicated toward deciphering, and now that, with her on episode 26, I realized that I'm not going to get the answer to the question, at least from her, for a year, but that's okay. But it was like deciphering lingo. And one of the pieces of lingo that was in this mix, and I don't know how true this is or not, was Bob. And apparently Bob is an airline flight attendant acronym for best on board. And I guess if there is somebody that's like super nice or super cordial or stands out or whatever, they might be identified as Bob, and Bob gets taken care of.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't mind being taken care of. Just call me Bob.
So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Amy, thank you very much for reaching out. Yeah.
If I assuming that everything in this process that I was just ranting about still allows me to attend and speak at the upcoming Performing Hypnosis Summit in Vegas in January, I will be sure to grab some Starbucks or Dunkin'. I think probably Dunkin' Donuts. There's Dunkin' Donuts in almost every airport, right?
I think so.
In the States. So I think Dunkin' Donuts is probably
and international. There are Dunkin' Donuts internationally as well.
Yeah. And I think there's Starbucks in some of them too. But yeah, I'll grab some.
There's definitely Starbucks. 100% there's Starbucks. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I love the idea of specialty treats from wherever you're leaving out of. Or Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea as well. Get a nice big thing of Toblerone in the duty free, and that way they can not only enjoy it, but they can also share it with the rest of the flight attendants.
Yeah.
You got any flights coming up soon?
As of right now, I currently have 0 flights booked.
We just booked our speaking of travel notes and new information super late in the podcast. We just booked our return flight or our passport run to the US. So we had booked it for mid-February. We had a set, booked, locked, and then the next.
What is this passport run?
So because we are American citizens and our home base is Las Vegas and we live in Las Vegas and that is our home, we are here in Mexico as visitors.
Right.
And as visitors, we can only stay here up to 6 months. Now, if you
got to leave the country, okay,
correct. So listeners would recall that when we were in Spain, we could only be there for 3 months, and that was just in the Shenzhen area. So that's almost all of Europe. We could only.
And it wasn't just 3 months; it was 3 months in a 180-day span. So it wasn't like you could jump over the border and come back.
Correct. So yeah, when we did Spain, we did 3 months in Spain, then had to do 3 months in Romania, then back to Spain, then back to the US for like almost 4.5 months, and then back to Spain for 3. And now in Mexico, we're doing Mexico. Initially it was going to be for 6 months or whatever, but within that 6 months, February is that spot. So we had booked just like on the edge of it. But luckily we can go across the border, go back home for a bit, touch base, and then come back for another 6 months. Right. And you can kind of keep doing that. There are expats who kind of do that. They visit here for 6 months at a time. They hop across the border and they come back. They used to go to Belize, which is really close by and really cool and really easy to do. But now the Mexican government is hip to U.S. citizens doing the Belize jump.
Gotcha. I thought that you might be going to like renew a passport. And I'm like, can't you do that at the embassy there?
No, actually. Well, I don't know. I should probably look in to see if we can renew, because Nilla needs to renew her passport.
So here's why I ask. I don't know if you paid attention to this. Is on the Daddy podcast, ICS, a few months ago, maybe less than a few months ago. An anonymous scoop wrote into them detailing this story that is now being broadcast out there as a true crime podcast about a federal agent and his au pair and a murder involving this guy's wife and some rando dude, right?
Right. I do remember, yes.
The au pair was from Brazil. And in light of this investigation, apparently the police, and I think this is probably standard operating procedure, confiscated her passport. No charges had been filed at this time. And apparently she had gone to the Brazilian embassy and got a new passport through them, or ordered it through them, or somehow. So I would imagine, especially since you guys aren't criminals or anything, to my knowledge, that there's probably a U.S. embassy. But again, if you're going back, then it doesn't matter. You could just
right. I mean, the good news is, yeah, we're going back, and we'll look at again the renewal for Nilla's passport, because I think it has to be renewed by December of 2025, which is next year. So, but we're looking to. She wants to get it renewed soon. But we're also going.
I think you got to be her stuff like in a 6 month window.
6 months, right. Yeah. So I mean, we're not going to wait till December, obviously, but they want you to be, and you can't be traveling for the time that you don't have your passport. So if we can do that from the Mexican embassy or the embassy here in Mexico, we will. But I don't know if we can or not. So what may happen at that point in time is she'll go back to the U.S. and she'll probably stay with friends in Vegas or what have you until she gets her passport renewed and then come back. And I'll just hold down the fort here in Mexico. That way we don't have to worry about getting a sitter for Fox and all that kind of stuff.
Looks like per the Reddit, by the way, I should be able to upgrade it once I'm on board. And the difference between the social and the premium should be about $50 or $60 for the whole trip.
Nice.
So that's good to know.
That's easy. That's good.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, we got those things coming. So we're flying out end of January, the weekend of January 30th through February 5th, I think. We'll be back in California. We may pop over to Vegas. We'll probably rent a car for the whole weekend. And if we do, then I might make a trip out to Vegas just to say hello to folks, do some things. Maybe try to do a guest spot on Daddy Podcast or not. Just give them updates on how we're doing and gather stuff. We're flying from here to Tijuana, then doing the cross-border express into San Diego, and then rent a car in San Diego and do all the stuff there. Yeah, it's gonna suck because we got to be in Tijuana before 7, like by 5:30 a.m. on the way back. Because our flight's like at 7:30 a.m., which means we got to do the cross border like at 5 a.m. or like 4:30 a.m. sometime around there, which fucking sucks. So we'll get a room in San Diego or something that last night and call it good. Yeah, so we'll see. But in the meantime, we'll have some fun, do some things, listeners. So thank you again to Amy for writing in. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
If you two want to write in, just send us the email over at bigsexynomad@gmail.com or feel free to post on any one of our social media posts. And if it's nice and long and interesting enough, we'll definitely read it here on the podcast and give you a shout out for doing so. And if you want to, you could also swing on over to bullwiththebutthole.com and subscribe to the podcast. Again, if you're a paid subscriber, you get access to special videos. You get your name read out at the beginning of the podcast. Today is the 21st, so this is not the last recording of the month. The last recording of the month, I will read off all the names of everybody who is a member of the community as well. So be ready for that. I'm going to start doing that, just like I said, once a month at the end of the month. So pay attention to that. So feel free to swing over to whereisbigsexy.com. That's where, like you're putting on clothes to get some Big Sexy digital merch. Still wearing my favorite, Where in the World is Big Sexy. Shout out to Brogan Hastings, who did the artwork for us. Check her out at 7billionneedles.com. That's the number 7, the word billionneedles.com. We appreciate her very much.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, feel free to swing over and check out some merch. Yeah, we thank y'all very much for tuning in. And in the meantime, safe travels.